So let's go back and talk a little bit about baseball.
Yeah.
It's a great place. Obviously, Arizona is, where half of our Major League Baseball teams do their spring training. What are the kind of things that we hope to find when we do our spring training physicals?
Well, we're looking for a lot of things, obviously, as an optometrist, looking for all those elements of vision that are necessary for hitting that baseball or fielding. And so that's a very broad topic when you talk about visual acuity, contrast sensitivity, and a lot of those other visual skills tied in, visual processing, hand-eye coordination. All those types of things are elemental and fundamental in what they're doing. And so when we go through and we work with a lot of teams, and also what's interesting is a lot of teams ask for different things. Some of them may need more of an ocular health assessment, and some of them may want you to pay attention more to visual skills. And kind of going back to your initial point, where education and reaching out and finding those the ways to work and cooperate with other health professionals that are involved with sports is very important, because the one thing that I find as an educator, and also that's kind of where my passion is the importance in educating parents, athletes, and their trainers, and that whole network group around them of what is absolutely essential to performing this unique task. For you and me and what we do in our day-to-day, 20/20 vision is fantastic. We get by just great. We can drive, we can do our work, we can do our tiny little charts and all that sort of stuff. But that doesn't cut it for a lot of these professional athletes that need great resolution capabilities in their eyes, and as well as great hand-eye coordination and precision in their gross motor movements. And when you break it down on those elementary levels, I think it opens up just a world for these athletes saying, oh, okay, there might be some opportunities to improve my game by just looking at this tiny little part. And once we address those tiny little parts, you start to see improvement, you start to see growth.
One of the things that we've talked about before is that sometimes the perception of what a vision evaluation is for a professional team is much different than what we as sports-driven professionals would certainly want. The majority of the time, a professional team physical is done in a training room with a stationary target that's at the end of the wall. And Dr. Blacker's done a lot of work on the science of hitting baseballs. Sort of what's involved in the process, right? We talked a lot about the acuity levels that are needed. The 20/12.5 is the average acuity for Major League Baseball. It's not 20/20, that's not even 20/15. It's better than both of those. So when we talk about what we try to do in spring training, it's really being precise in our evaluations and doing a lot more than a stationary chart on a wall. It really has very little to do with the aspect of hitting a baseball. So let's talk a little bit about the science part, because I think science is the foundation that we live on as medical professionals. But there are, to Dr. Blacker's point, there's not one way to do a sport vision assessment. There's not one way to work with a baseball team. Each of us who work with teams have kind of our own testing mechanisms and our own tests that we may run, depending on the testing site, whether it's large and small, how much time we have during our preseason assessment. But I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that can be done and tested for outside of that standard acuity chart. So let's talk about the science behind baseball and how difficult that process is. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
The interesting part about hitting a baseball, the science behind it, is there's three kind of processes that need to happen. The first one is vision. And you and I are experts in that. And we know vision, and we know how to think about vision. And then there's a second part where you're the decision making, and that kind of happens up here in the brain. Do I swing? Do I not swing? And then where do I swing? And when do I swing? And then we actually have to make that movement, and we have to kind of go for it. It's kind of a ballistic process. Once it begins, we're in, and it's really hard to hold up, even though a lot of those high-level players are able to do that. But those three systems kind of need to be in place and need to be strong systems in order to be able to perform well. A lot of people are out there paying attention to, the swing. Batting coaches looking at your swing, making sure that all the mechanics are right, and those are the swing experts. They're the ones that need to be paying attention to that. Luckily, I'm not the only one that's looking into, and we're not the only ones that are looking into the science behind hitting a baseball. Psychologists have done a lot of research into go, no-go, and that whole process, and what's happening up here to help baseball players become more successful. And so where I come in is I'm trying to investigate more and more what are the visual skills necessary in order to do that. And so we look at things like visual acuity, we look at things like spin pattern recognition, we look at things like how vision interacts with reaction, so that every one of those little things that we can kind of pinpoint if we can improve, do we see an improvement in performance? But all three of those things, the eyes, the brain, and the swing, need to be in sync. Now, with that equation, the vision, the mind, and the brain, if there's a deficit in one, you may have to see an increase in the other in order to get to success. However, if we can, with that one that is maybe at a slight deficit, that's an opportunity to improve. If we can improve that, then we might see an increased level of success as well.
So a lot more than a vision chart.
Absolutely. A lot
So
more.
I think this is one of the things that we're really passionate about, is trying to get the point across that this is more than just simply, we use the word acuity. Acuity is what most people think of with vision when they say 2020 or 2030. The point is, if you have a kid that's playing a sport, of any sport, make sure they're having their eyes examined and they have a comprehensive eye exam. That we're not just advocating for the pediatrician evaluation. It's simply just not enough. And what can happen inside the walls of a comprehensive eye exam are all these other facets, all these other aspects of not just how clearly do we see, but how well do our eyes work, how coordinated are the muscles, how good is our depth perception, how good is our visual recognition, our decision making. Those are things that can be quantified through an optometrist's office, and things that we have to do to make sure that athlete can do what they want to do at their best. The point is, if you're 10 years old and trying to hit a baseball, and someone tells you you're 20/20, and your muscles are strong and your eyes are healthy, but you can't hit a baseball, and we find those other neurological or processing links that can help that individual play their sport, again, that's why we advocate for every child playing every sport to get an eye exam. Because those little things that are missed keep that kid from playing at his best. He quits playing the sport. When you quit playing the sport, you lose the social aspects of sport, you lose the benefits, the lifelong benefits of playing sport, learning how to be a hard worker and a teammate and all those kind of things we hopefully want our kids to learn from playing sport. But if they're not successful in the sport, they flame out, they fail out, it's not fun for them because they're not successful at doing it. So let's really think about a comprehensive eye exam as much more than looking at a chart on the wall.